Now, the left wing is losing their minds over the capture of Maduro, but they're getting all upset because of wrong information. For example, Katie Phang, who used to be on MSNBC. Let's watch.
But when you leave Delcy Rodriguez, the vice president, who's now the acting interim leader of Venezuela, who is actively in violation of her own constitution. The Venezuelan Constitution requires within 30 days of the vacancy of the presidency to have elections. Nobody has talked about in the United States circles facilitating elections within 30 days because it's irrelevant, because ExxonMobil, Chevron, and ConocoPhillips, they are the only people that anybody is paying attention to right now. So it never had anything to do with drugs, never had anything to do with narco-terrorists, never had anything to do with regime changes to make sure that democratically elected people are really holding office. It always had to do with controlling the grift. Exactly. And the grift in this instance is the oil and the oil reserves that exist in Venezuela.
So annoying. She's wrong about the Venezuelan Constitution. First of all, they only need to call an election within 30 days if the presidency is permanently vacant through death, removal from office by their Supreme Court, permanent mental or physical disability as certified by a medical board approved by their Supreme Court and National Assembly, abandonment of his position duly declared by the National Assembly, recall by popular vote, or a declaration by the National Assembly that the presidency is permanently vacant after 180 days. Now, none of that's happened yet. Now, for example, when Maduro appeared in federal court in New York City to face narco-terrorism charges, he declared he is still the rightful president. Now, the interim president, Delcy Rodriguez, has demanded he be returned to Venezuela. Now, the U.S. doesn't recognize Maduro's presidency, of course, but elections are called from the perspective of Venezuela's government, not the U.S. government. Delcy Rodriguez views Maduro's absence as temporary, so she doesn't need to call elections within 30 days. Then Katie Phang talked about an oil grift. Now, she's ill-informed because the big U.S. oil companies aren't salivating at the prospect of going back into Venezuela, as a matter of fact. Now, Maduro and his predecessor, Hugo Chavez, nationalized U.S. oil assets. They took billions of dollars worth of U.S. oil property and stole it, said it belonged to Venezuela. So it's a huge risk for big oil to go back in because the socialists could try to seize the means of production again. Now, this notion that oil is the primary reason for Maduro's capture is just a Maduro talking point. Now, there are opportunities for big oil, but also extraordinary risks. Now, this tweet from AOC echoes Katie Phang's sentiment. It's not about drugs. If it was, Trump wouldn't have pardoned one of the largest narco traffickers in the world last month. Again, ill-informed. President Trump pardoned Juan Orlando Hernandez, the former president of Honduras, which isn't sending millions of starving migrants into the U.S. like Venezuela is. Now, the pardon could have bought goodwill from Honduras because we want the nations of this hemisphere to be friendly and cooperative. But then AOC goes on to say, it's about oil and regime change. Well, we talked about the oil. As for regime change, the Democrats need to make up their minds about that because AOC's tweet indicates she doesn't want regime change, but Katie Phang does want regime change because obviously she wants the liberal utopia. Will they ever get it in Venezuela? Probably not. In my view, that's why President Trump is willing to work with the existing government under Delcy Rodriguez. She's nicknamed the Tigress. Okay, she's been part of Maduro's inner circle for more than 10 years. In contrast, the opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado, was deemed by President Trump to be not a viable head of state for Venezuela because she's not respected within the country. Now, she just won the Nobel Peace Prize, but she couldn't even get on the ballot in Venezuela. Okay, Maduro barred her from appearing on the ballot, and that indicates she's outside the power structure in Venezuela. And so how is she going to handle the cartels who've had the run of the country for decades? She would need armed security 24/7 just as a starting point. Now, Delcy Rodriguez, in contrast, has the respect of the country. She's the Tigress. She was loyal to Maduro. The cartels know her and won't be going after her. The U.S. isn't seeking regime change here. That could get bloody. Now, President Trump, in my view, is seeking gradual change. Now, Joy Reid doesn't support regime change either. Let's watch.
And I will note, too, that as somebody who's very anti-war, I don't even think that, as rotten and horrible as Maduro was, as bad as Saddam Hussein was, it's really not our place to go and change the regime to anything at all, in my personal opinion. I think the Venezuelan people, when they get good and sick of their dictator, they will overthrow them like the Haitians throughout the French, and like it happens in any country where they're sick of them.
But it sounds as if Joy Reid even wants to undo the capture of Maduro and let the people overthrow him instead, which wasn't an option for the U.S. because Maduro's mismanagement of his country was causing too many problems for our country. Drug trafficking, human smuggling, weapons, gangs. Now, Katie Phang says it was never about drugs or narco-terrorism. Really? 200 Americans die every day from drug overdoses. We literally watched drug boats from Venezuela get blown out of the water. Katie Phang says the U.S. has no interest in stopping drug traffic, but she hasn't been paying attention. Now let's watch this discussion between these two political commentators, Joy Reid and Katie Phang.
But I want to show one other thing, because it does appear that it was not just about oil, it was also about Donald Trump's fragile ego. Can we play this, Jason, A10? Hopefully it has no sound on it. Apparently, at least according to the New York Times, one of the final sort of last straws that Maduro is that Trump was angry that he was dancing like him. I promise y'all this is true. That he was mad that he was doing dances like Trump does, and Trump was offended that he was, when he thought, copying him. That's just odd.
Well, it fits, it tracks, right, Joy? And then also the fact that he didn't get the Peace Prize, the Nobel Peace Prize, but Corina Machado got it, and she didn't decline it. He's so butthurt about that, right? That he was like, oh, I'm not going to recognize her as the true, democratic leader of Venezuela.
Now, that discussion didn't seem like political commentary. It seemed like gossip. Donald Trump attacked Maduro in part because he mocked his dancing. I mean, I know they hate Donald Trump, but give credit where it's due. The government of Delcy Rodriguez has agreed to send 30 to 50 million barrels of oil to the U.S. to be sold at market prices for the benefit of the people of Venezuela and the U.S. Now, Rodriguez also agreed that Venezuela will buy all their goods from the U.S., and holdovers from the Maduro government agreed to release all political prisoners, which all seems like it's net positive, now for Venezuela and the U.S. Now, Delcy Rodriguez seems like she would be a dictator, but not as bad as Maduro. Let's put aside the liberal utopian fantasies. It could take decades, maybe even centuries, for Venezuela to become a liberal utopia. And Katie Phang, again, has to be debunked. We discussed the security issues for someone like Corina Machado with the cartels, because it's Venezuela, okay, not Martha's Vineyard. Katie Phang suggested that Donald Trump is jealous of Machado because she won the Nobel Peace Prize. No, he's trying to protect Machado. Enough. These broads are getting on my nerves. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, leave a like and don't forget to subscribe.